Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to Star Wars Talk here on my YouTube channel. My name, of course, is John Campea, and it is the best day of the week. We get to talk about Star Wars. All Star Wars and nothing but Star Wars. A whole bunch of stuff about Star Wars. Here's how we are going to do it today. The first chunk of the show is going to be questions and topics that you guys have submitted. How do you send in a question or a topic for Star Wars Talk? It's real simple. Just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Now, this is important, guys. Put the words Star Wars in the subject line of the email. And of course, guys, keep your emails to 90 words or less. Then we're going to save some time, take some live questions. So without any further ado, let's dive right into it. And the first question today comes to us from Daniel Sorian, who writes, "Hello, John. My question is, if Solo is successful, and depending on how it ends, could we see a potential sequel, or do you think it's a one and done type deal? What do you think are the chances?" All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And yeah, that's kind of the big issue right now going in with Star Wars Solo. Of course, the big question is, will it be any good? I mean, with all the drama and everything surrounding it, the firing of the directors, yada, 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 will Star Wars Solo be a good movie? That's the first and foremost question. But the one that comes after that is, what are the plans for Solo? Do they have plans to make this thing a franchise? Could there be a sequel? Now, clearly, there's not going to be a Rogue One sequel. That movie kind of just ended. Could Solo have a sequel? Could they do a follow-up? Well, and then I guess it all depends on your definition of successful. Like you ask, if Solo is successful, well, what do we mean by successful? Like if it makes 700 million, it's successful. There's no getting around that. If it makes 700 million, it's successful. Anything north of that is great. 650 or less, yeah, it did okay. Like at the end of the day, I think Solo is going to probably cost Disney as much as Justice League cost Warner Brothers because of all the reshoots and everything like that. So, Justice League made around 650. That's okay. I mean, at least they broke even there. So Solo needs at least 650, maybe 700 million really. 700 million, it's successful. That's great. But would 700 million be enough to justify a sequel for something like that? And I'm not so sure. Now, if we redefine that and say, okay, it's successful, but how successful? If it makes $1 billion, 300 million more than just what we're saying would be successful at 700 million. If it were to make $1 billion, at that point, is Disney kind of forced? No pun intended. Is Disney kind of forced at that point to seriously look at Solo and where they're at and doing a sequel? I think the answer to that question is yes. And here's the thing. I think they made Solo. I don't think they ever intended Solo to be a one and done. I think they're totally prepared to make Solo a one and done. Like I'm sure they're totally ready. Hey, we're going to make this movie. It makes 675, makes $710 million. Great. We made some money. We made a movie. We made cash, good enough, and we're done. I think they're totally prepared for that. But I don't think that Disney ever went into making Star Wars Solo with the mindset that we're not doing any more. Because like I said, we know Solo survives. I mean, Solo is a Star Wars story, right? We know he survives it, or else he's not in Star Wars. So clearly he survives it. So I think they go into with the idea that, hey, if it's really successful, like I'm joining the $1 billion club, yeah, at that point, we're totally ready to make another one. And Ron Howard would probably be on board to direct that one as well. So it all depends on your term of success. 700 million, successful, don't think they do a sequel. $1 billion? Yeah, I think they're ready to do a sequel if it makes that type of money and the audience really responds well to it. That's going to be the other big thing is how does the audience respond to the movie? If the audience loves the film and it gets great word of mouth and the critics love it and all that kind of stuff, then primo, great. Then they'll definitely do it. But let's say it makes $1 billion, but people didn't like it or it's really divisive or whatever, then maybe they don't do another one. So there's a lot of things and variables that go into it, but the bottom line is I think Disney's prepared to do another one. If the audience reaction and the box office justify it, I think they're ready to do it. All right, let's move on now to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Vassileios Katsimenis, who writes, I am curious, when Luke disappeared, there was no mechanical hand left behind. Is that a sign that Luke is alive? Maybe a smart hint for the audience, like the no footprints on Crait. What do you think? All right, so this whole thing is really going into my whole theory that I presented. And my theory that I presented was simply this, was that Luke could be alive. It's possible that Luke could be alive in Star Wars Episode 9. Because there's nothing definitive. You guys have heard me say this before, right? There's nothing definitive in Star Wars 8 that says Luke's dead. Yes, it's implied. I mean, the only other time we saw, 2 times that we saw a Jedi just vanish and disappear was when they died. So it is implied that Luke is dead. And remember, too, that Rey at the end of Star Wars Episode 8 doesn't say Luke's dead. She says Luke's gone. So, again, it's implied. There's no debate. It is implied that Luke is dead at the Star Wars episode. But there's nothing definitive that straight up says Luke is dead in the movie. In the movie, there's nothing straight up that says Luke is dead. Should J.J. Abrams want to have a living Luke, there are many outs for him. There are many ways that J.J. could, in continuity with the story, say that Luke is still alive. You could say something like, Luke, instead of teleporting, he just immersed himself into the Force. He just became one with the Force at that moment. He just displayed this incredible thing of power by projecting himself across the galaxy, and then caught his breath, climbed back up onto the rock, meditated for a moment, opened his eyes, and then merged with the Force, or something like that, right? You could say that. Or you could say he literally teleported himself to another place, or whatever, some kind of new Jedi power that they've never seen. All I'm saying is that should J.J. Abrams choose to do so, there are ways to say that Luke is still alive. I'm not saying that's what they're going to do. I only think there's a 5% chance that happens and a 95% chance that they don't. But going to the question is something I never really thought about before. When Luke disappears, the metal hand didn't stay behind. The metal hand disappeared with him. That's interesting because in the other examples, anything non-organic, like their robes, the lightsaber, and everything, when Obi-Wan Kenobi died, nothing else went with them. The clothes stayed, the lightsaber stayed, all that kind of stuff. When Yoda died, everything else stayed behind. Now, could you make an argument that, but the metal hand, the mechanical hand was attached to Luke? Okay, so are you saying, though, if I stitched a lightsaber to Obi-Wan's arm, when Obi-Wan died, that the lightsaber would have disappeared too? Again, this is not proof by any stretch of the imagination. This is not proof that Luke is still alive, okay? It is not proof he's still alive, but it is an intriguing thought. The mechanical hand is non-organic matter. With all the other Jedis, when they disappeared in death, everything else stayed behind. Now, granted, his robes were still there, but the hand went. So again, look, bottom line, just so nobody misrepresents what I'm saying here, I am not saying Luke is still alive. I'm saying it is vastly probable that he's not. But there are little things here and there that make it plausible that he's still alive going into Episode 9. The hand just going with him, I think is another thing that makes it plausible that he may still be alive. But again, certainly it's not proof, because you can interpret it another way at the same time. So I'm not, just be very careful how we interpret that. All right, let's move on now to the next question. And the next question comes to us from Bill Howsare, who writes, in the Timothy Zahn novels, there was an arc featuring a clone created by Luke's severed hand. Not canon, I know, but what do you think about the idea of Luke having a clone in The Last Jedi? And that is who we see disappearing / dying at the end. Okay, interesting theory. And honestly, not one I've heard before. I mean, we've heard theories before that what if Luke has a clone? But I'll only speak for myself personally here. I've never personally heard the theory or the idea about what if Luke has a clone and that in the context of Episode 8, that's who Rey found on the island. It was Luke's clone. Okay, interesting idea, interesting thought. If that were the case, then the clone would have to have all of Luke's memories, which is also a possibility. We've seen other clone stories in different media kind of reference that a clone will have the memories of the original. Okay, there's some things there. I think, though, it would be a really cheap trick for them to do it. I think it would be a pretty cheap trick for them to do something like that. Not just a trick in terms of the movie, but a trick on the audience. And here's the thing, too. It undoes what I think was part of the brilliance of Episode 8. Remember, I have my issues with Episode 8. There are a number of things in Episode 8 I don't like. But there are also things in Episode 8 that I thought were bold and daring and genius. And one of the brilliant things I thought about Episode 8 was the story of Luke and what happened to Luke. That, to me, was genius. It wasn't what I wanted. It's not what I was hoping for. But it ended up pretty damn brilliant. This whole notion of, what Luke going through broke him. Made him lose himself. To the fact that he just thinks the universe is just better without me. And he withdraws himself, cuts himself off from the Force, and goes and hides away. I thought it was genius. Because that would happen to the greatest of heroes. And showing Luke's humanity through that move, I thought that was genius. I have other issues with The Last Jedi for sure, but I thought that was great, even though it wasn't what I was looking for. And to undermine and undo that boldness, that greatness, that storytelling, I think would be a real shame. I think that would be a real shame. Now again, just going back to the last question, talking about how JJ does have some tools at his disposal. JJ Abrams, who's of course directing Episode 9, that JJ Abrams has some tools at his disposal that if he wants to have a living Luke Skywalker, he's got some tools at his disposal. And certainly the clone aspect is yet another tool in JJ's toolbox if he wants to bring back a living Luke. However, like we said in the last question, I think there are enough other tools there available to JJ that pulling the clone card isn't necessary. And there are too many other tools in JJ's tool belt here to bring back Luke that doesn't undermine the storytelling in Episode 8, that I think the clone angle is one that he can just put away and not worry about. So, possible, yes, but I think it would be a mistake. I honestly think it would be a mistake to go in that direction. And, but hey, we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe JJ comes up with a brilliant idea for using the clone angle, and we'll just have to wait and see. All right, let's move on now to the final emailed question of the day, and then we'll go over to live questions. And the final email question today comes to us from Jesse Martinez, who writes, "We all talk and joke about the fact that at the end of the Star Wars A New Hope, Chewie didn't get a medal. But all jokes aside, seriously, why didn't Chewie get a medal? Why have him walk down the aisle with Han and Luke? Did Chewie know he was walking up there just to not get anything? What's the deal?" All right, yes, and you're right. This is a topic that we joke about a lot. Like, where the fuck is Chewie's medal? And yet, when Chewie at the end, just before everybody claps, Luke and Han turn around, and then there's a moment of silence, and Chewie goes, "Roar," and then everybody claps, right? And I joke around that. That "roar" was Chewbacca medal. That was, what's the language that the Wookiee speak? I'm not even saying. Anyway, let's say Kajikian. It was Kazakhstian language for Chewie yelling, "Where the fuck is my medal? Why am I up here?" So we joke about that a lot. But okay, let's put the jokes aside for a second. Let's actually put the jokes aside for a second and look at that for a moment. Why didn't Chewie get a medal? Jokes aside, the sarcasm, the snarky stuff aside, why didn't he get a medal? And honestly, if he's not getting a medal, why did he walk up that aisle with Han and Luke? What was the point? And then if so, did Chewie know in advance he's not getting a medal? He's just going to walk up there. He's just going to escort them up the aisle. Because Luke and Han, they're the real heroes. You were just some guy who was along for the ride. Is that how they're treating Chewie? Now, the neat thing is, when you look at today, Chewbacca is treated with a lot more respect today. Right? Like, he's pretty much a badass, and he's really popular now. But in that movie, they treated him like the pet dog. But the question is why? Couple of theories. One, We know that one of the hallmarks of the Empire was a strong racism, that in the Empire, humans were the superior race. Anything that wasn't human, secondary citizens. Could some of that prejudice, could some of that mindset, because clearly when you look at the ending of A New Hope, the vast majority of the rebellion were humans. They were the vast majority of the rebellion. Could it be possible that some of that inherent prejudice and bigotry that was in the Empire was some of that also spilt over into the rebellion? Like, could there have been racist and bigoted overtones even within the rebellion? Yes, they were the heroes, but that doesn't mean they were perfect. It was one of the dominant IDing factors of the Empire. Could that have been also in some of our good guys? That's a total possibility. Total possibility. Let's look at possibility number 2. They didn't give him a medal, practically speaking. They just couldn't get one on him. That's a weak excuse. It's a weak excuse, but something we should look at. Maybe they just didn't have a medal they could fit around Chewie. Weak excuse, but something we have to consider. Well, let's look at option number 3. Option number 3 is they didn't consider him the hero. They didn't consider Chewie the hero. They considered Luke a hero because he's the one who blew up the Death Star. They considered Han the hero because, he rescued Leia and flew them off there and came back and helped blow up the ship. Which, is another big thing. Why didn't, now that I'm thinking about it, not only not Chewie, why didn't Dennis Lawson's character, why didn't Wedge? Wedge was there. Wedge helped blow up that damn Death Star. Wedge took shots. Wedge took damage in that battle. Why didn't he get a medal? But the thing with Chewie is that he was there for the rescue of the princess. He was there to make sure Luke was able to blow up the Death Star. He was a part of all of it and didn't get it. So, 3 options here. Option number 1, carryover bigotry from the imperial dominance of the galaxy also made its way into the rebellion. Possible. Number 2, practical. They just couldn't get a medal on him. Weak excuse, I know, but I'm grasping at straws here. Number 3, they just didn't consider him one of the heroes. But even in option number 3, it doesn't explain then why have him walk down the aisle. Big questions, I don't know. Look, at the end of the day, I think everybody will acknowledge that them not giving Chewie a medal at the end of Star Wars was a mistake. That was a mistake. And now we're just playing the game of trying to maybe come up with a way and an explanation as to why they didn't do it. I'm going to go for option number 1. I believe there was still a little bit of bigotry even within the rebellion. And that's why I think, you don't give a medal to a walking dog. You don't give a medal to a Wookiee. Maybe there was some of that and it got carried over. But who knows? We'll just have to see. Really, there's no good explanation. That's the bottom line here. There's no good explanation. Chewie should have got a medal. We all know it. All right, guys. With that out of the way, we're going to take about another 20 minutes here and take some live questions here on this Sunday talking about Star Wars. You guys have already been sending in a whole bunch of them, so let's jump over to them right now. And we're going to start off with Chris Miner, who writes, hard question, favorite part of episode 2? Oh, no, not a hard question at all. My favorite part of episode 2 was Yoda and Dooku. The Yoda and Dooku fight. Easily. No questions asked to me. That's my absolute favorite. It is, look, as much as I hate the prequels, there are things in the prequels I really like. I talked about that a little bit on Open Mic the other day. Obviously, in Phantom Menace, I really love the pod race. I think the pod race is great. And obviously the Darth Maul lightsaber fight. Going in episode 2, a big highlight for me. And I know there are people who hate the Yoda lightsaber fight. That's fine. I love it. I might even sit through Attack of the Clones just to watch that Yoda lightsaber fight with Dooku. I really love it. I absolutely adore it and love it. I even like that fight more than Yoda versus the Emperor, although I love that scene too. But this one, great. No questions asked. Favorite part of episode 2 is the Yoda-Dooku fight. All right. Andy A. Hernandez writes, just saw The Titan. It was okay. Your opinion. Oh, it looked like garbage. I didn't even bother watching it. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, The Titan is a Netflix original show that's got Sam Worthington in it. It's about they're trying to prepare these soldiers, but one guy starts to mutate, becomes some kind of monster, blah, blah. I don't know. I didn't watch it. I just watched the trailer. And I thought the trailer looked pretty weak. I mean, it wasn't bad. I mean, the trailer wasn't garbage, but it certainly wasn't good enough that got me excited about it. So I didn't watch it, to be honest with you. I didn't. And to be really honest with you, I don't have any plans on watching it. So if other of you guys have seen The Titan that's playing on Netflix, by all means, please jump into the comments section and leave your thoughts on it too. All right, let's move on now to the next question. And this one comes to us from Andrew Gifford, who writes, I think Emilia Clarke's character will be revealed as the true villain of Solo. Maybe she breaks Han's heart and makes him jaded. I don't know. I certainly don't get the sense. First of all, I already get the sense he's a little bit jaded. Then in the trailers, we see the interactions with Woody Harrelson, like Woody Harrelson, who maybe become a little bit of a mentor figure to him. Look, you join this life, you're never going to get out. Never trust anybody, blah, blah, blah. I think it was that relationship. This is just my guess. I think it's that relationship that kind of sours his outlook on the universe a bit. And I think it might be that relationship more than the relationship with Emilia Clarke. Emilia Clarke may end up breaking his heart, but I don't think that gives him I don't think Emilia Clarke breaking his heart would give him a negative outlook on on all of life, per se. I think these are lessons he's going to learn from the Woody Harrelson character. And then throughout Solo, he's going to learn that maybe Woody Harrelson has a point. You know what I mean? And becomes a little bit more jaded that way. So I'm just not sure it'll be the Emilia Clarke character. I do think this. I do think the Emilia Clarke character is going to be a more major player in this movie than a lot of us think. She's not in a ton of the trailers, but I do believe her presence, her character, her contributions to the story are going to be more major than we think. So let's have to wait and see. And I do think Han's getting his heart broken. Or maybe he's doing the one breaking hearts. You never know. It is Han Solo. All right, next one comes to us from Rec Cruz, who writes, Hey, John, two-part question. In the new Solo TV spot that was released today, Chewie's reaction to Han's hand was hilarious. Do you think that's his poker face? And do you think this is how Han won the Falcon? All right. So yes, we see a game of sabacc going on. There's a new TV spot, a 45-second TV spot that dropped today. In case you haven't found it or seen it, you can jump on YouTube. I'm sure you'll find it no problem. And there's a couple of quick little things that we see in this 45 spot that we haven't seen in anything else. And a lot of the new stuff has to do with the nature of the relationship between Han and Chewie, which just means I appreciate it even more. There's this one shot where Han looks at Chewie and goes, you think everything's a bad idea, or something like that, right? Which is great, perfect Chewie-Han relationship. And then there's this other scene that Rakuz is talking about where, they're playing sabacc. He looked down at his cards, shows them to Chewie, and Chewie's like, ugh. Like it's just like perfect reaction from Chewie, right? Again, kind of pointing to what we were talking about a little bit earlier, that Chewie seems to get treated with a lot more respect these days. And like Chewie's the boss, man. Chewie's great. Anyway, and a lot of the new stuff in this new spot, again, highlighting the relationship and the nature of the relationship between Han and Chewie, and also showing them meeting, because Han turns to Chewie and says, so what's your name? So obviously this is like amongst one of the first times they meet each other. So that's great. Could this be the moment that he wins the Falcon? I don't think so. I think this might be the moment that he meets Lando, but I don't think it's the moment he wins the Falcon. That probably comes a little bit later. Or maybe not. Maybe it does happen in this thing. It's totally possible, though. It's totally possible that him showing Chewie the cards, Chewie going, could just be a part of the con. Like maybe he's got great cards and Chewie's playing along going, oh, like terrible cards, whatever, right? So maybe Chewie's a part of it and playing along with it. Don't know, we'll have to see. Again, I'm guessing that's not the moment he wins the Falcon. It very well could be. I'm guessing it's not. I'm thinking that's the moment he meets Lando, and then maybe him winning the Falcon comes a little bit later. Or that could be it. Like, who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. Good question, though. All right, we move on now to the next question, which comes to us from Dylan Trost, who writes, over or under 0.5%. Episode 9 begins with a sex scene. I'll take the under. I mean, I won't take 0, but even at 0.5%, I'll take the under. That is not something Star Wars movies have ever done. I don't think that's how Ron Howard would start off something like this. If Lord Miller were still directing it, I might give it a 3 or 4% chance, because Lord Miller might want to do something comedic with something like that. But Ron Howard, I don't see him doing it. I don't see him doing it with Star Wars movies. So even at something as low as 0.5%, it's an interesting question, but I'll even take the under at 0.5%. Let's see. Anthony Cullen writes, December 18th, 2020, Space Whales, a Star Wars story. Man, that is one thing I'm really worried about. Because I hate the space whales. I do. I hate the space whales from Rebels. I think they're stupid. And there is a strong possibility that the giant tentacles we see in space in that Millennium Falcon scene very well could be space whales. Very well could be space whales. And look, I'm not going to get up and walk out of the theater if that's the case, but I'm going to go, it is going to be a stupid part of the movie for me if they're using the space whales. Space whales are ridiculous. They shouldn't even be in Star Wars canon, but they are. They're there. And that means Ron Howard can use them if he wants, but I am going to do a serious head shake and probably an audible. I'll be in the theater going, I'll probably do an audible moan out loud. I might even, you'll know you're in the movie theater with John Campea if the space whales appear and you just hear some guy in the back going, fucking space whales. That'll probably be me. That will probably be me. I really hate the notion of space whales. All right, let's move on here. Tanzao writes, Episode 9, Luke is alive. He shows up mind-controlled by Kylo. Kylo ain't powerful enough to control Luke. Rey beats Luke in a fight. Then he proclaims that she is the superior Force user. Oh my God, I see what you're doing there. I see what you're doing. You're pulling a Superman in Supergirl, right? Very clever. That was very clever, you son of a bitch. But it was very clever. For those of you who haven't heard me ranting about this, I've been really complaining lately about the show Supergirl and how they just brought Superman on to be a jobber for Supergirl. So I'm reading this question. Tens, okay, really cool. Episode 9, Luke is alive. Okay. He shows up mind controlled by Kylo. What? You son of a bitch. All right. Next one comes to us from Flick Talk, who writes, would you like it if Kylo had more scars or a robot hand or eye, etc.? In episode 9, feel like he needs a little more dark side bling to really make him pop. No, I'm good. I'm good with, and then it just becomes a little bit stereotypical, if you will. Then it becomes how they treat their dark side dudes is a little bit stereotypical. If they keep going back, oh, you got to have a machine this or a mechanical that. No, I'm good. I'm good with Kylo. He's been enough of a badass that he's never lost any fight significantly enough to have any major damage other than a scar. So other than the scar, I'm good with him being what it is. Look, I also wouldn't be opposed to the idea, but no one is doing any damage to Kylo Ren other than Rey or Luke. So, and since he hasn't suffered any real damage at the hands of Rey or Luke, who else is going to do that to him? Nobody. Now that Snoke's dead. And yes, I do believe Snoke is dead. So no, I'm fine. Look, I'd be cool with it if they did, but I'm totally cool with it if they don't. So I wouldn't want them to do that, to be honest with you. I wouldn't want them to. All right, we go now to Darth Impact. And Darth Impact writes, hey, John, in Return or Revenge of the Sith, when Senator Organa told Captain Antilles to wipe C-3PO's memory, don't you think R2-D2 would have just told him what happened later on? Thoughts? No. But that is a problem. That is a problem. Why did they just have the 3PO droid's mind erased and not R2's memory erased? That always stuck out to me. It's like, that makes no sense. Why is it important to wipe the protocol droid's memory, but not R2's memory? I've never really got that. On top of that, would R2 tell him? Probably not. R2's a loyal soldier. If R2's not supposed to tell 3PO something, he won't tell 3PO something. So that much I get. That much I'm on board with. But I've never really understood the rationale behind wiping the memory of one of the droids and not the other. I've never really wrapped my head around that and understood how is that justified? What's the thinking process between going on in the senator's head when that happens? And I just don't think there is one. But to the heart of the question, Darth Impact, wouldn't R2 just tell him? I don't think he would. I think if R2 knew he's not supposed to tell 3PO something, I think he's a good soldier, and I don't think he would. So that's just kind of my thought on that. All right, good. Totally valid observation, though. Good question. All right, let's see this. Oh, my goodness. The coolest guy in the comments section, right? Good username, writes, why do you think so many people ship Rilo? when clearly he's manipulated Rey and is also a straight up murderer. So many people glorify their relationship, even a lot of female fans, which baffles me. Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, look, a lot of women like the bad boy. And Kylo's like the bad boy. And I only say this because I've had a lot of my female friends tell me this. They tell me this rolling their eyes, but they tell a lot of my female friends, and is that women also like a fixer-upper when it comes to, women like guys that they can fix, you know? Men like problems we can fix, and we see to incessantly, even when we shouldn't be trying to fix something, that's what we men do. We always say, oh, how can we fix something? Which can just make problems worse and become very irritating to the people around us. Women like to find guys they can fix. You know, and it's usually the bad boys. So there might be some of that as well. And remember, it's not really until we get closer to the end of episode 8 that we really understand just how far gone in darkness that Kylo really is. And that even his affection for Rey is completely just based on a desire not to be alone. And it's really more a desire to possess Rey than be with Rey. You know what I mean? And that's really where that comes from. But I could totally see, look, he's the young guy in the story. She's the young girl in the story. It's totally rational to think that there could be a path there that the two of them end up together. I get it. I think the death of Han Solo says no way. And I really think the ending of episode 8 clearly points to the fact that that's not possible and it's not going to happen. But I can still understand why people would look at it that or want something like that. Some people just love romance, man. Some people just love the idea of romance and two people finding each other and having a happily ever after. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. I don't poo-poo on anybody who wants to see that. I get it. But I don't think that's where they're going. And I think the storytelling up to this point clearly points that that's not where they're going. So we'll just have to wait and see. Okay. Recruz writes, Darth Revan or Kenobi trilogy? Reason why? Well, I'm not going to go in depth on that, but I would go Kenobi trilogy. Even though I'm not really big on the idea of doing prequel stories, I have been sold on the idea about why Kenobi, more than any of the other Star Wars characters, could make a compelling story, because there's a big thing of time there between when Obi-Wan goes to Tatooine to keep an eye on this little baby Luke, and when we come back across him again in Star Wars A New Hope. Lots of stories you could tell there. Lots of really good stories you could tell there, whether on Tatooine or going off Tatooine or whatever. Revan is an unproven commodity. There's cool things you could do, but there's also a number of problems that are presented with Revan. So anyway, that's why I would kind of go with Kenobi. All right, Cameron W. writes, why was Harrison Ford so adamant for so long about killing off Han Solo when seemingly being content playing Indiana Jones until the end of time? I don't know. It's a good question. I really don't. I've often wondered about that. For some reason, the way he saw Han, I think he just saw Han as it would be great for him to have a great ending. And with Indiana Jones, he just saw that as a serialized thing. He just saw Indiana Jones going on forever. And that's just the way he saw the characters. I don't think it came from a dislike of playing Han Solo. I don't think he disliked playing Solo. I think he saw the Solo character as having that's a character that would be great if he had his end, you know? Whereas Indiana Jones, he looked at as this is a serialized character that you could just carry on forever, like a James Bond, right? He looked at Indiana Jones more like a radio play character, more like a comic strip character that could just keep going on and on and on. It just came from his differences of philosophy in looking at the two characters. You know, one of the things I think we really saw, and that I thought was really interesting in the build-up to The Force Awakens, was, for the first time in a long time, not even just Star Wars, but in movies in general, look, for about 10 years, it never looked to me like Harrison Ford was having any fun being an actor. For like the good 10 years before The Force Awakens, it never looked to me like Harrison Ford was having a good time. Even in press junkets, when I have a chance to go and talk to him at press junkets or talk to him on a red carpet of different movies, I never got the sense at all that he actually enjoyed doing what he was doing anymore. But then something changed. In all of the marketing and the press leading up to The Force Awakens, it legitimately looked like Harrison Ford found his love for the business again. And I remember we talked about that a lot going into The Force Awakens. It looked like Harrison Ford was a man who rediscovered his love for the art of filmmaking and rediscovered his love of acting and rediscovered his love of Star Wars again. Because you look at all the interviews, but also forget the interviews itself. He voluntarily got involved in a whole lot of extra stuff in the promotion, whether it was for the charity stuff, like, what was the name of the Star Wars main charity push, like Living the Force or A Force for Change or Force for Good or whatever it was called. He got involved in a whole ton of that stuff, and he was surprising fans at things and like things you would never think Harrison Ford would do. And it seemed like The Force Awakens really revitalized his love for that. You know what I'm saying? And so again, I don't think it had anything to do with he likes Indiana Jones and he didn't like Han Solo. I think he just saw the characters and how they should have their individual conclusions differently. And I really think it just comes down to that. Let's see. Cobra writes, could we see the Tarful in Solo again? You know what? Off the top of my head, I can't even remember what the Tarful is. Hold on a second. I can't even remember what a Tarful is. Oh, are you talking about the Wookiee? Oh, that's right. You're talking about the Wookiee who was there with Chewbacca when Yoda was there. Okay. Miss you, I will. Oh, I don't think so. I don't see any need to have him there. So I'm going to say no. I don't think we will. Possible. Wouldn't be out of continuity, so it is possible. Jedi Knight and friend of Captain Solo writes, Battlefront has a new mode called Ewok Hunt. I heard about this. Had Ewok Hunt. You play as Ewoks versus Stormtroopers at night, and Stormtroopers need flashlights to see them. Check out the trailer. I have heard about this. People have sent me like tweets about it too. I have not looked at the trailer though, but I am very curious to see about that because everybody knows I love the Ewoks. All right, let's go on here. The next one comes to us from C. Arson, who writes, you think Lucasfilm will force theaters to show Solo on the biggest screens for the first 4 weeks during summer like The Last Jedi? I don't know. That's a taller order for a Solo movie in the summer. That's a taller order. They had more luck with doing that with episodic movies in December. Doing that here, I don't know. I think they'll probably have looser requirements. Because look, Solo is not going to be a $2 billion movie. I don't even think it's going to be a $1 billion movie. Star Wars Solo does not have the same leverage as a Star Wars Episode 7 or a Star Wars Episode 8 does. It just doesn't carry the same leverage. Not to mention, it's a much more crowded summer season. So I'm going to guess Lucasfilm will realize they don't have the same kind of leverage here, and so they probably won't. Yeah, I'm going to guess that they probably won't. I don't think they'll have the same requirements here. I also don't hold anything against them for doing that with their bigger movies. It's a business. If you have that leverage and you can do it and it's good for your movie, then you do what is good for your movie. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all, to be honest with you. But I think here they will realize they don't have that same kind of leverage and it won't happen. Let's see here. Just got about 5 more minutes, guys. Let's see. Cole Scott writes, do you think that Rey's parent situation could be like Anakin, where his/her mother just one day became pregnant? Nope. The Immaculate Conception stuff, I've never, that's one of the things I really didn't like about the prequels. Lucas going with the whole Immaculate Conception thing I thought was dumb and unnecessary. It was totally unnecessary. So no, I don't think they'll repeat that mistake and say that's a part of Rey's parentage. I don't think they'll do that. She had parents. They referred to parents in the plural. So I don't think they'll do that. I think it would be a mistake. This whole Immaculate Conception thing of Anakin, I thought was unnecessary and stupid, and never say midichlorians to me. All right. Next one comes to us from Jake Vidmar, who writes, have you watched the behind-the-scenes documentary, The Director and the Jedi, about the making of The Last Jedi? Great documentary, also you're in it. I've only seen the part that I am in. I haven't had a chance to sit down and watch the documentary yet. I'm hearing amazing things about the documentary. And for those, it's on the Star Wars The Last Jedi Blu-ray. I am actually on the Star Wars Last Jedi Blu-ray. Amazing. Bucket list, check. I mean, that's great. I'm not in the movie, but next best thing, I'm on the Blu-ray. But no, I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. Everybody who tells me about it says it's great. So I'm really looking forward to sitting down and watching it. But as of right now, the only part that I've seen is the part that I'm in. So I will get a chance to sit down and watch it. Thanks for bringing it up, Jake. Rodrigo Paramo Munoz writes, oh, nothing, just sends in a super chat. Thank you so much, Rodrigo. Rakuz writes, a Knights of Ren TV show to show their backstory. Nah, unnecessary. And I don't like this whole idea of making, I don't think TV is the right way to go for a lot of things, to be honest with you. So no, we certainly don't need a television show just to show the backstory of a couple of side mentioned characters. I personally, I don't see it. I don't see it. See, Raviteja writes, huge fan from India. Thank you so much, man. Okay, John Campea. Question, outside of movies, when do you think humanity can become a Type 1 civilization? To be honest, I'm not sure what you're talking about when you mention a Type 1 civilization, so don't really know what you mean. And the final question today, as we wrap today's thing up, Rodrigo writes, as much as I would love to see new characters, what do you think of a novel/TV series like Game of Thrones, which with Prince Zizor, Thrawn, Hutts, and Snoke fighting over the galaxy after return of ROT? I'm not sure what you mean by ROT. Brings Zizor back, the Black Sun, of course. Love your show. I don't know. First off, TV series, no. Novels, sure. I don't even really care about the novels anymore, to be honest with you. Now that I realize that the inevitable happened, the novels aren't really canon. They say it's canon, but it's not really canon. They certainly don't treat them like canon. So I don't even consider the novels canon anymore. So since I no longer have faith in the novels, now that they can't be good, some of the novels are great, but now that I realize, they just pick and choose when they want to call them canon and when they're not. I'm kind of over the novel, so I don't care. Put anything you want in the novels, that's fine. TV show, probably not. But look, a lot of people have been wanting to see Black Sun. That's something that's available to the storytellers moving forward. And you could do that in a movie. Maybe Jon Favreau is going to use that in his Star Wars television series. Maybe it goes into a novel, I'm not really sure. But hey, you're not alone in wanting to see something like that. All right, guys, that will do it for today's and this week's installment of Star Wars Talk. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Once again, send in your topics during the week. Just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com and put the term Star Wars in the subject line. And of course, keep the emails to 90 words or less. Hey guys, while you're here, make sure you're following me on Twitter, simply at John Campea. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. Click that subscribe button and make sure you click the little notification bell as well to keep up to date on all the videos we have going on here. And one last quick thing, guys. I hope you've had a wonderful weekend. Looking forward to a great Monday. Just a programming note, we are swapping places with Open Mic and the John Campea Show Monday through Friday. Open Mic will now be in the mornings. The John Campea Show with all of today's relevant news is going to be on, as of course my camera turns off just as we're wrapping up the show. We're doing it so I've always been frustrated that the shows that I do, the movie news shows I've always done have been in the mornings, and those shows are always about yesterday's news. I'm really excited about doing a show later in the afternoon where we're talking about today's news. So we're going to be doing that little swip. Keep your eyes open for that. All right, guys, that will do it for today's installment of Star Wars Talk. Thanks so much for being here. My name's John Campea, and until the next show, bye-bye.